Hello, welcome back. This is part 3 of a walk through the Celtic cross layout. We are ready to take a look at the cards that we have in this layout to work with. So we've defined the positions, and now let's see the images that we're going to be working with. Remembering that the first two cards show the situation that we find ourselves in. 5 of Cups crossed by the moon. Card number 3. This is an aspect of the person's personality, basic makeup, temperament that they bring to the situation. Card of the past. Card 4. What's a recent experience that's impacting the current situation? Card 4, card of the past. Card 5, where is the current identification? What are we aware of, knowing, thinking, feeling, experiencing? Card 6, what's immediately ahead in the inner realm? I'm going to turn everything straight up so that we're not looking at reversals here. Card of the immediate future and the inner life. Now to see what we see in the outer life. First card down, how others might see this person. 8 of Swords. Energy around, energy in the environment, Devil card. Card 9, Helper card. 2 of Wands. Card 10, most likely unfoldment, Ace of Pentacles. Okay, now I think it's very easy to see that there's a lot of information here. There's a lot going on. There are a lot of connections. Very important to start with a clear head. So the first thing to do with this or any reading, any layout, any method, is to make a note of your initial impressions. Not specifics, but what are some of the big picture themes? How does this combination of cards make you feel? What does it make you think of? What sorts of dynamics, images, situations come to mind? It isn't important to interpret this layout right off the bat. What is important is to get a felt sense of it. What are the major themes? So let's take a look at that. When you do such a thing, when you take the overview, you're going to look at what cards came up, what cards maybe didn't come up, what major arcana influences do we see, what minor arcana cards do we see. The first thing that I notice with this layout is that this moon card feels pretty heavy and serious. It's right here in the middle. This is the combination where two cards are going to relate to one another. Let's look at the major arcana cards here. We have the Moon, the Star, and the Devil card. So card 17, card 18, and card 15. Really working through some transformational stuff here with those kinds of major arcana cards. I noticed the difference between the watery feeling of these first two cards, the 5 of Cups and the Moon card, and then the difference between that and this Queen of Wands. This Queen of Wands feels very dynamic. These first two cards feel very heavy, receptive, confused. So I noticed the difference between, or the disparity really, between what's happening here and what's happening here. I notice that I'll go to the other side here, how others might see me and the energy around me. This is really complex and doesn't feel very good. There's a lot of misunderstanding going on here. There's a lot of not seeing things clearly and not getting what you want. Some of that is reflected in this inner life. I think this 5 of Cups and the Moon card really clearly are not getting what they want, what they need. If I look at the 3 cards that talk about what's coming, what is ahead, which is the card number 6 and then card number 9 and 10, these feel open and optimistic. We see the Knight of Cups starting to move off in a new direction. We see the Helper card here having a sense of possibilities, and then Ace of Pentacles in the 10th position. So that's a nice numerological correlation to see an ace in the 10th position. That number connection there is kind of nice. That 10 numerologically will reduce down to 1, so that's something to keep a lookout for. Not only the elements that you get, not only the suits that you get, but what are there any consistent number references? There are a couple of 8s here. We have this 8 of Swords, we have this 8 of Pentacles, and we have this Star card, which is 17, but 1 and 7 is 8. So 8 is a number of transformation and regeneration. So we might look at that and get a clue that something is trying to change here. Something is trying to have a new vision. So it's a positive thing, I would think, to see something concrete and something manifesting here in this Ace of Pentacles. So we've touched on the notion of what numbers do I see and what might that mean. We've touched on what kind of major arcana presence do we see. We have 3 major arcana cards. They're fairly significant, especially that Moon card right there in the middle. There is a sense that this, whatever this process is that this person is engaged in, is only going to budge when it's darn good and ready. That Moon card sits right on top of that 5 of Cups. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Let's take a look at the elements. So let's start with Wands. Where do we see Wands? The fire element. We see the fire element here in the Helper card and in position 3. An aspect of the person that's coming to the situation. So we do see some wand, some creative, personal drive, personal power energy with the wands. Let's see, Cups. Where do we see the water? We see the water here with this 5 of Cups, with this Knight. Certainly the Moon is a water card, so there is a lot of emotional energy here. Swords, where do we see swords, or the element of air? We see it in 2 places. We see it here with the 8 of Swords, where there's complications, where there's misunderstandings, where there's, if not conflicts, there is restrictions and limits out here with what we're seeing, how we're perceiving things. And then the Star card is Aquarius, so that's an air sign. That's a very aspiring card. So there's a visionary quality of this card that isn't really matched by this card, which is anything but visionary, but very limited in their in the perceptions. So we do see the air element. Where do we see the Pentacles, the earth element? We see it in 3 places. We see it here with the 8 in this making a new approach on things. We see it with this Devil card. The Devil card is ruled by Capricorn. We see the pentacle on the Devil's forehead here. So there is some material manipulation going on out here with this Outer Life card. And then Pentacles again with this manifest, new start, new beginning with that Ace. So we do see all of the elements. We do see all of both the major and the minor arcana represented. The major arcana speaking of the transpersonal archetypal components, and the suit cards, the minor arcana, talking more about the building blocks and the aspects of life that we can control. So it's always a good idea when you first look at a layout to come up with a couple of adjectives about, not necessarily to define it, but to give you a field of meaning for it. So I would look at this combination of cards, and there certainly is uncomfortableness in the present situation. with this Moon card, this 5, this Devil, and this 8 of Swords. All of this is very kind of locked up and blocked and, for lack of a better term, yucky. But at the same time, there is this aspiring optimism with the Star card, the Queen of Wands, this 2 of Wands, even this 8 of Pentacles in the past. So we have really a mixed bag here of this very heavy feeling here right in the center, but around it there being a lot of positive energy. So I would say that this is transformational. I would say that something new is trying to happen here, but not easily. There's something new trying to be birthed, and we're maybe just about on the cusp of it, but certainly the current energy is feeling quite stuck. So get yourself the overview, assign a few adjectives or adverbs to how the thing makes you feel, maybe come up with a couple of phrases or two, but when you're looking at this layout, the first thing to do is not to try to interpret it, but to get a felt sense of it. Okay, in the next section here, in section 4, we will begin the actual interpretation of this layout and see what we can come up with.